They call it old money, ancient money, money so old it forgets its own beginning. But here's what they don't tell you. Some fortunes don't just pass down, they compound, they multiply, they become systems. And in Britain, one family turned inheritance into an empire worth $28 billion. You see a crown, they see a corporation. You see tradition, they see revenue streams. You see Buckingham Palace, they see the most valuable real estate portfolio you'll never own. This isn't a fairy tale. This is the business of being royal. And business, my friend, is extraordinary. Every morning, somewhere in England, someone pays rent to a king. A hospital stores ambulances on his land. A school sits on property he controls. The army trains on his estate. And at the end of each month, millions flow upward, not to the government, to him. King Charles III, net worth £640 million. And that's just what they admit to. Because here's the thing about royal wealth. Transparency isn't part of the deal. When Queen Elizabeth died in 2022, her will was sealed. Not for 10 years, not for 50, forever. The British. Public will never know exactly what she owned, what she earned, or where it all went. That's not secrecy, that's sovereignty. And sovereignty in modern Britain comes with a price tag nobody's allowed to calculate. Let's talk about the duchy. Not one, but two. Medieval estates that survived wars, revolutions, and centuries of social change. The Duchy of Lancaster, founded in 1351, belongs to whoever wears the crown. The Duchy of Cornwall, established 1337, goes to the heir. Together, they're worth over £2 billion. They own cricket grounds and coastlines, luxury hotels and forgotten villages, rivers you've swum in, beaches you've walked on, land you thought belonged to everyone. Last year alone, Charles received $27 million from Lancaster. William pulled in 30 from Cornwall. No corporation tax, no capital gains tax, no inheritance tax when it transfers. These aren't assets, they're dynasties wrapped in legal immunity. But here's where it gets interesting. The real fortune isn't in the duchies. It's in what they call the Crown Estate. £15.6 billion in property, land, and rights. Half the coastline of England, prime London real estate. The building where Apple's flagship store sits. Wind farms in the ocean. Even the gold and silver in British soil. The monarchy doesn't technically own it, but they control it. And 25% of the profits flow back as the sovereign grant. $172 million in 2025, paid by taxpayers, to a family that's already wealthy beyond measure. That's the paradox. They're funded by the public to maintain a private lifestyle. And the public? They're told it's tradition. But tradition doesn't renovate Buckingham Palace. Money does. $72 million for a coronation, $172 million for a funeral. All while nurses and teachers watch their wages stagnate. And here's what they never mention in the documentaries. King Charles doesn't just inherit wealth, he inherits it tax-free. When his mother died, he received an estimated $500 million in personal assets, jewelry, art, racehorses, castles, stocks in Britain's biggest companies. If you or I inherited that, we'd owe 40% to the state. £200 million, gone. But not Charles. There's a royal exemption, written into law by politicians who wanted to preserve the monarchy's wealth. So the richest family in Britain pays less tax than the woman who cleans their floors. Let that sink in. Now zoom out. Because the family's wealth isn't just money, it's influence, it's access. It's the power to shape laws before they're even written. In 1973, the Queen's lawyers successfully lobbied to exempt her private investments from transparency laws. For decades, nobody knew which companies she held shares in. In 2017, leaked documents revealed she had money in offshore tax havens, the Paradise Papers. But there was no scandal, no investigation. Because when you're the crown, accountability is optional. Fast forward to today. The Duchy of Lancaster has been caught profiting from the estates of dead citizens. People who die without wills, without families. Their assets, by medieval law, go to the duchy. It's called bona vacantia. In the last decade, £60 million collected. The official line? It all goes to charity. The investigation? Only a fraction actually does. The rest funds property renovations, personal investments, and expenditures that directly benefit the king's private portfolio. But you won't see that on the evening news. You'll see the Queen's corgis, the royal wave, the balcony moment. Because the British monarchy isn't just a family, it's a brand. And the brand is worth billions. Not in assets, in influence. Royal warrants, those little crests on products, generate over £4 billion for the British economy. That's the power of a stamp of approval from the palace. Companies pay for access, they lobby for meetings, they angle for the privilege of saying they serve the crown. And when they get it, their revenue explodes. It's the original influencer economy. Except the influencers live in castles and never disclose their earnings. Let's get specific. Sandringham. Estate. 20,000 acres in Norfolk, privately owned, not by the state, by Charles. He rents out shops, farms, a post office, even a church. One tenant pays £18,000 a year for juice production rights. Another rents a social club for just £100 annually. The king decides who pays what, and there's no appeals process. Because he's not a landlord. He's the sovereign. And then there's Balmoral, 50,000 acres in Scotland, worth $100 million. Operated as a hunting estate, deer stalking, grouse shooting. Activities that generate millions while environmentalists argue the land should be rewilded. But again, transparency isn't required. The royal family's land use decisions are private, even when they affect public ecosystems. Even when they contradict their own public statements about climate change. And the art. Oh, the art. The royal collection. Over 1 million objects, paintings. By Rembrandt, Fabergé eggs, Leonardo da Vinci sketches, technically owned by the nation, but housed in royal residences, managed by a royal trust. And when they're displayed, ticket revenue goes back into the collection. Not into public schools, not into hospitals, into preserving a private gallery for a private family. Some pieces are worth hundreds of millions, but they'll never be sold, because they're held in trust for the next king, and the next, forever. The wealth isn't spent, it's accumulated. Generation after generation, compounding like interest. Except instead of a bank account, it's a constitutional monarchy, with legal protections most billionaires can only dream of. And here's the strangest part. Most British people support it. Polls show nearly 60% want to keep the monarchy. Not because it's cost effective, it's not. Not because it's fair. It's not that either. But because it's British, it's identity. It's the thing that separates them from every other democracy. And identity, it turns out, is priceless. Even when it costs billions. But let's be honest, this isn't really about Britain. It's about what we tolerate, what we romanticize. We watch royal weddings and cry at royal funerals. We buy magazines with their faces on the cover. We turn their lives into entertainment. And while we're watching, they're building, investing, securing generational wealth that makes tech billionaires look modest. Because Elon Musk might be richer, but his money's new, volatile, tied to stock prices and public opinion. Royal money? It survived the fall of empires. It's older than democracy itself, and it's not going anywhere. But here's what keeps me up at night. It's not the castles, it's not the jewels, it's the invisibility of it all. Because 28 billion sounds like a number, but it's not. It's a system. A system where wealth doesn't announce itself, it whispers, it hides behind titles and traditions, behind ceremony and pageantry. And while we're applauding the spectacle, the machinery keeps turning. Quiet, efficient, untouchable. Let me show you what I mean. When Prince William turned 21, he inherited £10 million from his mother. When he turned 30, another 10 million. Tax-free, held in trust, protected by laws written specifically to preserve royal fortunes. Diana knew what she was doing. She structured it so her sons would never struggle, never depend entirely on the institution, never be trapped the way she was. And that's beautiful in a tragic sort of way. But it's also a reminder, wealth like this doesn't just happen. It's engineered. Planned generations in advance, with lawyers and accountants and politicians smoothing every edge. Now look at the rest of the family. Princess Anne's net worth 70 million. Prince Edward, 45 million. Even the lesser-known royals, the ones you barely see, they're worth more than entire neighborhoods. And they all receive something, called the sovereign grant. The argument? They work for the country, state visits, ribbon cuttings, charity events. The counter-argument? So do firefighters, so do nurses. And they're not pulling 6 figures from taxpayer funds while sitting on inherited millions. But here's where it gets complicated. Because the royals do generate tourism. The Crown Estate does send billions back to the treasury. The weddings do boost the economy. So maybe, just maybe, it's a net positive. Or maybe that's just the story. We've been sold. Because nobody's ever done an honest audit. Nobody's been allowed to. The numbers are estimates.